Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Team Huddle. I'm Jalen Holston, and joining me as always is Nolan Chang, Jared Shirai, and Keone McKee. Boys, how are we doing today? It's a lovely Sunday afternoon.
What a glorious, glorious morning.
We good.
It is a good morning.
It is. Yeah. It's good to see you all. As you know, on Team Huddle, we talk all things volleyball. We discuss our life as coaches, at least Nolan, Jared, and I, and then Keone obviously has reference from back in the day and all those things. But we're going to get into some topical things.
I was going to say, I mean, not that it's anywhere near the level of what you guys are doing right now, but I will be coaching-esque for my my shipyard league team.
Yes! Hey! He's coming out of retirement, boys. We did it.
Hey,
it's the only goal of the show.
They're adults now, yeah, so don't throw the ball at them. Huh?
Oh, bro. They're gonna catch cracks just like the old days. They're not
knuckle
kids.
Push-ups, everybody.
It's like, push-ups. Ain't no rules when you're coaching adults.
And then in between games, ain't no laws when you're on the claws.
Exactly, baby.
You already know. And most of my games are on my day off, so I'm like, yes.
Oh.
Hell yeah, brother.
No wonder you switch it to Fridays, huh?
It's all
Chess,
coming together.
Not checkers. Huh?
Okay. I got you.
I was like, first game's Tuesday, next game after that, I think is the next Friday. I'm like, yeah, I get to drink after my Friday game, so
hell yeah,
let's get it.
Hell yeah. That's the way you do it right there. But as we usually do on the show, we're going to check in with our active coaches and see how they're doing, how was their week, and all those lovely, funny stories that we get from our respective teams. Nolan, I'll start with you. Do you have some good stuff from the week?
I was supposed to go to a tournament yesterday, but I ended up not. It was more of like a mental thing.
Yeah.
I'm still not ready to kind of do long drives. I've tried to test it out this week, driving around like to Target down the road. But when you have back surgery, like every little dip, every little bump, you feel it a little differently when you're driving. And, I do feel comfortable when like Nicole's in the car with me. Like we went to the movies last night. So she was in the passenger seat with me. So you feel like a little more kind of relaxation. And like I was just hoping, wake up Saturday morning, get ready to go to the tournament. Maybe I'll just kind of get over it. Woke up that morning, was getting ready, and I just messaged my head coach. It's like, I can't do it yet. I just need a little bit longer. It's still been like 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
I can do like short distances, but every venue around us is at least like 40-minute drive from where we live. So I was like, I'm just going to wait a little bit longer. We have what we do our club spring break this coming week.
Yeah.
Where we just kind of give everyone a little bit of a hiatus, go enjoy time, kind of relax, because we don't really have any tournaments in April. So we just kind of take this little break off this week. And then I just told the head coach, I was like, I'll be ready. I'm pretty sure progress-wise, I'll be good to go once we reconvene. And then I'll be back in it full time. So that's pretty much all I have for me.
So you were home all day yesterday. And
I just ended up sleeping in a little more. I just ended up.
Okay,
I heard.
Okay,
Nolan's just trying to get 3 days off at work.
You heard that? I heard that. I was playing right by myself.
I'm going to be sore for another 6 weeks, maybe.
Had to do what I had to do.
Yes, you did.
Yes, sir.
But it's good to hear that it's at least getting better, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just little by little, I definitely relate to you on that front. I think, that'll be next week's topic is just like coaching through an injury, because it's definitely a different avenue that you have to kind of circumvent, because you can't do all the things you're normally accustomed to doing.
Yeah.
Like demoing a drill, moving around, trying to do technique correction, literally just getting to practice.
You have 11 players at practice. You want to do a scrimmage, and as a coach, you're like, sorry, can't help you guys today.
Exactly.
Just play libero and not move.
You would think so. You would think so.
Stand in that back and just stand
You would
there
think
like,
so.
oh, shoot, you guys know I have this far radius right here, and I have this tall, so I can't reach that ball on the ground. Sorry.
Help me!
Oh, man, exactly. Jared, how was your week of coaching children? All of the above.
No, it was good. I'd say good for the most part. Wednesday we had our game, beat J. Sarah, program sweep. So it was nice. Friday we played Santa Margarita. My JV team lost 25-23 both sets. But the crazy part is like we had such a good day of practice the day before. competing, working hard, and then I didn't see the same result the next day. So that was a little frustrating for me. If they even showed like, I would say an ounce of what they showed the day before, should have been 25-18 both sets. We would have won.
Yeah.
Our frost off because it's like our JV team is split, right? Remember I was saying on the frost off level, which is our JV red, they lost 16-14 in a thriller. In 3. So
dang,
yeah. And it sucks because like a lot of gyms, I mean, it's nice because they can do it. We play both at the same time. So one played on this side, one played on that side. And so I'm coaching my team. And by the time this game finished, I was just barely getting to the curtain. And I was like, oh, I couldn't see the final. But our varsity won in 4. Probably should have won in 3. So that was a good win for us. And we needed that win to keep us in that third place slot and fighting against the 2 top teams this week. But
win's a win.
Win's a win, man.
Yep. But practices have been okay. I had to like kind of yell at my team about effort, like responsibility, accountability, attitude.
How dare us as coaches?
How dare you?
They did a bunch of dive lines.
Criticize their effort?
The worst part for me this week was just I had to yell at my setter. Like it's in practice, like you wanna set everybody, you wanna know how to set everybody, but we are competing to see who's like, it's called Who's the Man. That's literally the drill is called. It's called Who's the Man. And he like, I had to jump in, dude. I got it. Of course, it's a JV team, so I got a kill, and like we're on the winning side where you can accumulate points. It's kind of like how Nolan. Did you do waves with Nolan? Noah. Sorry. Did you ever do waves?
I want to say yes. I
so
remember
it's like
some of those.
So it's like waves where you receive on one side, and then you have to convert a serve ball and then a free ball, and then you get a big point. So we won the serve ball, and we're getting the free ball back. And the back 2 players are liberos. One has to be a particular outside for that rotation, and the setter. And then all your front row players is your outside, middle, and right side. So I got a kill on the outside, and and the very next ball, we get the free ball, and he chooses to set one of our back row liberos. And he hits it in the net, and I like stopped practice. And I was like, you got to understand you're setting to win. I was like, who just got you the kill? And he like looks around. He goes, I don't know. I was like, me. I was like, I'm
not Lord Man, my man.
Like, I'm mad right now. I got you the kill. You give me the next ball. I was like, if it was our other outside, if it was our middle, like whoever it is, give him the ball again. They got you a kill. And you set him until he gets blocked or he messes up. Then you go back to somebody else. But why would you set a libero? Like, dude, I put the kid on the spot. And then the next few rounds, he just like something clicked and he was killing it after that. But it just like, it was frustrating because I was like, I'm trying to win. You step on the court. You don't want to look like a fool. You want to beat your kids up. And,
right, yeah.
And then that happens. I'm just like, throwing hands up in the air. And I'm like, oh, my God.
Come on, man. It's trolling
help
me here.
Me, help you. Help me.
I'm trying to help you win. So why wouldn't you set me?
Were you, Jared,
Oh, my
I'm
God.
just curious. Were you a libero through high school as well?
No, I set in a 5-1. I played some middle as well because we played 6 rotations.
Setter as
right?
well. Setter as well.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But
I was
You got to
gonna
keep
say,
in mind the libero wasn't even alive and running when he was in
All
high school.
right,
So
yeah,
everybody had to go
one of the
around.
day.
I mean,
That wasn't even.
It wasn't
this
a
is
shot,
fact.
though.
This is a fact. This is,
because even
look at the timeline. I'm innocent.
No, if Jay,
You say because volleyball was played with rocks. Woo!
No.
Just joking.
If Jay wasn't going to say it, I was going to say it because I think my club year that I played with Henry, my senior year, was when they introduced the libero.
Now, the only reason I was going to say is because I feel like, in general, your liberos and or your setters are the most vocal and or competitive on every team. So it just makes sense that you.
So it makes sense that me and Henry were libero and setters.
So it just makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because
Putting all the pieces together.
I mean,
Yes.
you're the
like
commander of
psychology.
the court, though, right? I mean, the
Yeah,
liberos
exactly.
are the back row defensive genius. You're like
Oh,
Jalen
what
calls
was that
them.
you are?
I don't
Defensive
know.
Oh, my bad.
The setters are the QBs, right? They're the Pat Mahomes, right? Jalen?
Oh, he's
Pretty
calling
much.
himself the Pat Mahomes.
I mean, it's not wrong. I equate a lot of things to football
Setters
when
are the
it comes to
unsung
volleyball.
heroes.
You know what I mean?
They are. That's what I learned that very early.
You get the
100%.
criticisms and you never get the glory.
Yeah.
Literally ever.
You're the assist man, and nobody remembers the assist man.
They remember the big banging outsides, the flashy middles, all the
What
cool
a
pin
dig!
stuff. But
What a hit!
But
I don't know what
no.
happened in between.
if you spread your offense well enough, your MVPs are always going to be setters, like how Bryce Thompson was for the NAIA last year.
yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
I think that's why we
That's what
always
it is.
in Hawaii, you always equated, like, you always appreciate those positions more because our culture always builds around those positions first. Then it's because, like, everybody can hit. Like, there's not a single person who steps onto a volleyball court that's not able to hit the ball. But it's really getting to that part that is, like, the hardest part. And if you can get down the passes, you can get down the sets, you can actually set up an actual play. I mean, it's magic.
No, I
Hell,
agree.
the national teams have been run by, Hawaiian
setters.
Hawaii setters the
Yeah,
last
yeah, yeah.
10, 15 years. I mean,
yeah.
I'm gonna say Kavika went in there, and then obviously we've had Micah, and then most recently from Long Beach, our homie, geez,
Josh?
I'm blanking. Yeah, Josh. Like he was running the summer national team last year. I mean,
Yep.
I mean, it's just how it is. You know
I mean, we equate wins to the team. Henry always tells me, and I actually 100% believe this beyond belief. The team with the best setter wins. If your setter's okay and the other setter's just good and they have mediocre hitters, like that setter's going to make them look like all stars all the time. And so, I mean, we're going to throw jabs now.
No, I was just saying, I was like, we had that best setter. We still lost to Puno.
The difference. You did not have the best setter. Your setter was an outside. Dude, your center was a 6 rotation outside that passed 80% of the court. But he didn't set. But he didn't set. He didn't run the offense.
Yeah, he ran the offense for us.
The year you guys won, didn't Micah pass the whole time?
Juan was after. You keep saying
Yeah.
it.
But that's why. But that's why.
But he was the setter for all 4 years. So that's how he came up from middle school into high school.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at Outrigger, he was setting kids like Taylor Crabb and things like that. You know, they got to play
a
together.
little
that
stacked,
team-
a little bit.
that
You know,
Outrigger
when we
team
look at
was
how they
stupid.
ended up. You know,
That's why I just don't feel bad about losing them. They were a stacked freaking high school.
just a
team,
little
so.
bit when we look at the careers of those people right now. You know what I mean?
It's just like
The Taylors are
Team
literally
USA beach
redoing
volleyball.
and-
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Redoing the AVP as we speak, but yeah. Oh man. Well, as far as my boys went, they had an opportunity to kind of get a little bit back on track as far as hunting down our league title and all that, but they dropped the ball. We had a whole day of practice, and we've played. This team is notorious for being really good at ball control, and basically their strategy is we're just going to make you make errors by playing perfect volleyball. Despite my best efforts, like I did some creative things I felt in practice where, like, when we scrimmed, if I had extra players, I would just put them on the court because that's how scrappy that team is. So they would play like 6 versus 9. Or
You played 9-man.
Yeah, pretty much. So like I'd have crazy stuff going on. I'm like, guys, this is how it's going to be. And like, we are a team that is good at siding out the volleyball. Like, we don't rally that much. We block well, etc. So like, we need to put the ball down. Sure enough, like when we were in and playing our system of volleyball, they looked like toddlers. And then obviously when we decided to not do that, we looked like infants. So they got rolled in 3 at home. It was a tough combo to have. I think there was a lot of doom and gloom because of how our league is set up. It's all based off regular season. You get a home and away, and basically your record after playing all the opponents determines who wins the league title and all that kind of stuff. So now we're 1-2. So unless something kind of crazy happens, like we basically have to run the table, not drop any more games, and then other teams at the top have to lose a bunch of games for us to have a shot. So that's kind of, I didn't want to sound defeatist at the next day of practice, but I just put the reality of like, hey, here's where we were at. I know it's early in the season, but this is how it's set up. This is how it is. So here's where we are.
Yeah.
That was kind of a tough conversation to have with a still fairly young team. But this week we got another chance at a league game on Tuesday, and then we'll be on the road again. So we'll see how they do. Indeed.
Shock the world.
Yeah, we will shock the world, hopefully. But yeah, so on to today's topic. And I fell into this topic accidentally because we were talking in my coaches group chat from my high school staff, and one of our JV guys was going to be missing because he was apparently working. And I have a very strong opinion about that, etc. So what is your guys' feelings on kids working during their active season? So like during, and let's say just, single sport athletes. So if you're a basketball players having jobs during that time, et cetera, et cetera. Keone, I'm going to throw it to you real quick. Like, what are your thoughts on, or at least your feeling on kids working during the season?
So I had an issue so when I was coaching, and for those who are unaware, I did coach for 2 years at La Mirada High School in California. There was an issue with a player who did have a job. He was having, basically for the first, maybe 2-3 weeks, he was not showing up to practice right after tryouts. So we had tryouts. We ran tryouts for a week. He showed up for that, made the team, and then immediately after that, like when we started practicing like with the actual team, he was not showing up. And for me, I'm a little bit old school in that train of thought where if you commit to my team, you show up to practices. I was also having issues throughout that year with some of the players kind of saying like, "Oh, coach, I have homework today. I have a test to study for." And it was one of those things I'm like, okay, and I was like, so you'll have practice, then you'll do those things.
Yeah, that's how that works.
So we have 2 hours of practice, and then you go do that because you're not skipping my practice. You skip my practice, you're out for the next game.
Let's face it, no one does homework right after school anyway.
Yeah,
right.
Don't lie
I mean,
to me.
you can see.
You're walking around after school with your friends.
We're always doing homework.
I was a scholar. How dare you?
11 p.m. was like my homework start time in high school.
We're always doing homework. This was homework, right?
Mine was on the bus going to school in the morning. I would just sit back in my little seat with my knees up and just kind of knock out all the stuff I needed to get done before my
It was
first
always
hour.
hey, did you do last night's homework? Let me see it real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you next time. Don't worry.
To be fair, though, I had the Froshish team, so I had the lower team. So a lot of the guys who were on my team were a lot of first-time players, and second, they were actually very scholarly. Like when you get those report cards back, and it's like, wow, you guys are smart.
But you got a 4.6.
Yeah. It's just like there were some really good grades. So I
if only your passing looked like this.
I'm not gonna say it. But as far as like their schoolwork, I did see that they were actually achieving a lot in school. But at the same time, like I said, you are a student athlete. I understand student comes first, but you have to show up to my practices. Like, I mean, I don't care. It's part of the balancing act. And when you get to the college level, which is what I told them, like, you will have to balance this a lot more because you'll have classes kind of around the clock and you got practices at a certain time. Like, there's always going to be something trying to clash with your schoolwork and your practicing. But either way, when it came to the working situation, he did tell me sort of the situation at home, which I think made me a little more comfortable about letting him work during the school year because he did have a lot going on. His family was struggling. I believe at the time, and I'm not going to put anything on blast, but I will say that he did have some personal issues within, with his parents that were, they were struggling. So he needed to work in order to kind of help out the family. So I understood it from that point. Him and I had sort of a heart-to-heart when it came to that whole thing. And I just told him, I was like, honestly, there are a lot of things that I don't condone when it comes to missing practices and sort of missing games and all this sort of stuff. And he was he was actually one of my oppos. So actually, probably he was my starting oppo, like on the team. But for me, like there are certain things that overtake the reasoning for you showing up to practices. And for that particular instance, I was okay with him missing practices because I did understand that, at the end of the day, I don't know what's going on in your home life, and I don't, I'm not going to be paying your bills. So I fully understood it from that point. I let him kind of tell me what his schedule was for his work, because it was like, it's the same old with every, part-timer young job. Like, it's like their schedule's not really set, the hours are all over the place. So, he was telling me, and I was like, as long as you can kind of, even if you can show up for a little bit for some of this, or you can show up on these days particularly, so that I can kind of go over something with you, like, I'm okay with that. So it ended up working out. He did end up playing pretty often. And, I think from the team standpoint, I was able to make the other players understand why it was okay for him to be missing these practices and still be able to play. Because I did say from the get-go, like, I told them, like, if you miss practices, you're not going to play. And then as I was able to kind of catch everybody up with, like, not telling them his situation particularly, but being like, you know what, there are things that in life will hit you, and you absolutely need to take care of them outside of volleyball. And I want you to all know, if something like that shows up for you, like, I, as a coach, take responsibility for allowing you to take care of those things, but still make my practices and still play and compete for the team. So
exactly.
in that instance, for sure, I condone it. So in general, it is one of those things. I think it is a situation by situation basis. Like, it's hard to say that somebody can't or can work, because sometimes, things are going on that we need to at least be sensitive to. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure where I'm at with working. Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought up that point, so we can kind of address that situation. Because I think as coaches, all of us have common sense, right? Like, if that's where the kids find, like, that's where the family is, that's where the financials are. Like, I don't think any of us in this room are going to tell a kid, hey, I'm going to not, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to make something work so you can go take care of your family, right? But, like, generally across the board, let's say for, like, most cases, a lot of what I at least have run into in my recent coaching years is this movement from the parents of kind of pressing the issue on making their kids independent. Therefore, they work all year round during their sporting events, etc. So, Jared, I'm going to flip it to you and get your 2 cents on how you feel, obviously excluding a situation like what Keone said, maybe kind of kids more aligned to, like, your situation and a better, socio environment a little bit, where that's really not a concern and it's just more of like a parental value issue.
I think I like what Keone had said. I do think it's sometimes situation by situation. We have already addressed that, which is awesome. But for me, I'm so torn with it, because I have it's happened on my girls team. It's happened on my high school boys team. You make a commitment. Of course, you want to offer a spot. The kid takes the spot. He should be responsible for the spot. But at the same time, if you are an open book and you're transparent with the coaches, like, hey, coach, I'm doing this, I'm working, and I'm trying to get my shifts changed. I'm trying to do this actively. Like, I get it. There's going to be, like Keone said, there's going to be times where, as a part-time worker, you really can't do anything about it, and you just have to suck it up. But the players need to understand, and we were very, very upfront about it, that if you don't show up, you're not putting in the work, like, you're not going to start. And the kid, the beginning of the season, the kid was missing a lot of practices. People were asking, like, oh, is he coming to practice today, or this and that? It's like, and when he doesn't come, like, he comes to games, he doesn't start. He's normally, if he's not our starter, then normally he's kind of first off the bench, but then he kind of just fell into that role. And the kid understood. He understood why, He's like, hey, my parents want me to do this, like how you had said, Jalen. And there's kind of no way around it. Just so happens they never schedule me on this day, or they never schedule me right here, but I can't be here today for some reason. And it's like, I mean, in a sense, you gotta understand. I do like to always tell them, I was like, like Keone said, it's if you're looking to play at the next level, this is part of life. figuring it out, knowing how to do and when to do things. But being a man and being open with us is probably the best thing that we could ever teach you. But just know, like, if you're looking to play, like, your commitment has to be there. If you're just looking to be there when you can be, and we get that work is an issue, then just know that that has to get taken into consideration for your playing time. And I think for me, that's kind of what it is. Of course, at higher levels, like in the college world and everything, when we were coaching at Hope, you know, there's going to be things where like, hey, coach, I really can't get out of work today. And it's like, it is what it is, you know.
Yeah.
But for us, I mean, it's like, dude, if you can't get to work at 6 a.m. in the morning, it's not work, buddy.
Right. Yeah, that ain't no job.
We know what it is, you know. I mean,
right.
Like, or it's like, hey, I have a 7 o'clock appointment. Cool. Like with the doctor or this or that. It's like, cool. Just show up for the first 30 minutes and then you can leave for 30 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's what it is. If you're trying to make the effort to show up, if you're trying to make the effort of, I'm not using work as an excuse to get out of a lot of things, then like it's more understanding, I think, from the coaching point of view.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm one of the nicer coaches, I guess you would say, to a certain extent. And if you ask Henry, he'll tell you I am the nicer coach. And I think I take a lot more things into consideration when it comes to that, which is a good thing and a bad thing for me, because in the long run, if you don't address things early, you can go get walked over. But if you address it early in the situations, then it's like easy, because it's like, okay, this is what I said, this is what's going to go by, and you just follow through with it, and it makes life a lot easier, and the kids understand a lot easier.
I feel like I don't imagine you being the nicer coach. I don't know why.
Out of me and Henry?
I can see that.
I was like, out of me and Henry? Really?
I can see that.
That's going to
the
be
reason we called him Papa Jared as 18-years-olds, okay? Like, you know, he took care of us. You know?
Nicer than Henry. Nicer than Henry, but I was like, nice coach. It's different. I could see it more being nicer than Henry than nice coach.
Well, Nolan, I'm going to swing it over to you. Jared also brought up the great point about how important it is to that communication as coaches. Yeah. Like, we ask that so much of our kids, and I think it's a hard lesson to teach, especially considering the ages that we have to deal with, right? Yeah, they'd rather text it to us or email us than actually come have a conversation. So talk to us again about your feelings about kids working in season, and like, how do you open up that dialogue specifically, like when you're coaching a team?
I mean, for sure, when I started doing high school teams, actual, like at a high school, it was always very straightforward. You make the team, all right, this is what our practice schedule is. We're practicing from this time to this time pretty much every day. Game schedule is out. You know what your games are. If you guys are joining my team and you have a job, like Keone said, circumstances matter. I'm not going to question certain circumstances, and I'm going to own it up to you to make sure you're telling me the truth. If this is something family-wise and you're saying I'm working because I need to help my family, all right, I'm trusting that is the reason why you want to do it. I have had players who have decided to step away from the team, quit the team because they wanted to work instead, whether they're an older upperclassman who just, wanted to make some extra money before they move on to college or whatever it may be. Cool. That's no scratch off my back. You are open about it. If you are a player who has been through the program for a while and you are doing this now when you have, I wouldn't say like God-given talent, but you have talent and you have enough where you would be something on the team, then that's a conversation I have with them. Like, why is this happening now? Why are you deciding to do this? I know for a fact you only play high school volleyball, so why is fall and the winter for California not a good time for you to work? And you can obviously have discussions with your employers. If your employer is not willing to budge when it comes to the season that you're going to be involved in something school-related, okay, then I still don't see, depending on the circumstance, do you need this job? If you do, okay. That's all that you have to say to me. I need the job. All right, I get it. But I do think it has to be an open line of communication. So for my club boys or girls, obviously we tell them what our practices are. It's usually 2 practices a week, 1 during the weekday, 1 during the weekend. Tournaments are obviously on the weekend. And they have in that a lot more pull when they come talk to their managers or supervisors. Hey, I have practices this week and this week. Do you mind if I get scheduled for the other days? And that's something completely fine. And then barring any sort of practice change, I'm expecting them to show up to each practice, each tournament, unless for some reason you let me know a month in advance if you have a school-related event that you can't come to practice, or you can't do this, but it has to be ahead of time. And I appreciate that a lot more, because I don't need you coming to practice, next week's the tournament, all of a sudden you leave practice and I get a text message, hey, coach, by the way, I was like, I just saw you 20 minutes ago in person. I am not a scary coach. You can walk up to me and say, hey, I don't think I can make the tournament next week for this reason. If it's a high school dance, hell yeah, you're in your youth. Go to your high school dance. You know, this is something that you only get to experience once. We're going to have plenty of tournaments. If it's a 3-day tournament, and it's an important tournament.
Keone's a hard no on prom, brother.
Hard no.
You are practicing tonight, all night. You are not going to prom.
You're doing
what time is prom? 6 practice.
How many times we missed winter formal and like senior luau?
Oh, I'm so sorry. But, you know, I'm just saying, like, I'm very understanding about, you know, I was in the position where, you know, you sometimes do choose things over school-related events because it matters more to you in the volleyball realm, right?
Yeah.
But there are things where I can look back on it now and say, man, what high school would have been if I just didn't do anything socially with any of my friends and just stuck to volleyball. It is a mixed bag, right? If you think you're someone, or if I'm a coach and I think you're someone who can go to the next level, I may have a sit down and conversation with you saying like, hey man, I'm just saying this tournament is more important for you at this point. It might be more relevant for you to come to this tournament. If it's a 3-day, hey, there might be some college coaches there. This might be the exposure.
Hey coach,
you
what
need.
about me? He's like, you can
Say,
go
hey,
to the prom.
you know what? When you
Robert,
leave practice,
you can go to the prom.
you text me after practice. So
Right.
I'm just having this in-person conversation. You can text me after practice.
Wow. Be a man. Tell him to his face, Nolan.
Yeah. But yeah, I know some players, they just get jobs. Like I have a couple guys on my boys club team who just get jobs because they love buying slunks. And I was like, all right, you want to make some extra scratch, just buy some slunks for your own playing and your own benefit. That's no problem with me. But when it does kind of interrupt what we're trying to build, then it becomes an issue. And my rule of thumb is always, leading up to a tournament, you miss one practice, you sit out the first match. Miss 2 practices leading up to a tournament, you sit out 2 matches. Miss 3 practices, you're sitting out all, but I expect you to be at the tournament with your team. You know, it's one of those things where you're going to reap what you sow. If you have to miss practice, okay, but no matter what, I'm not going to give you that kind of leeway, even if you are our best player, because it is a precedent on our team. You know, these guys are paying the same amount of money, especially for club, to train on our club team. And just because you miss a practice doesn't mean that you're going to be able to just kind of step in front of them and go play. But I always do. I also wanted to add, like, for homework, finals, I was like, look, you guys get your homework ahead of time. You guys get your finals scheduled ahead of time. Like, your syllabus will say, this is when your midterm is for the school year or semester. This is when your final is for the semester. If we're leading up to those finals weeks and you say, I have to miss practice to go study, it is 2 hours out of your night to come to my practice during the weekday. Mm-hmm. I don't care if your parents are very scholarly. I've told you ahead of time, these are not going to be things that you can just skip practice for when you have all this time. If you have to write a paper, I guarantee you your teacher didn't tell you this morning, write the paper due tomorrow. It happened multiple days before. You have to time manage yourself better. And I just say, like, if you're cramming the night before a final, probably not going to remember it the day of the final. So you should have been studying a little bit before. So that's not on me. That's on you. So just make sure that you guys are aware of how you need to schedule your time leading up to whatever final it is, leading up to any tournament that we have. Because the big tournaments are always near the end of the semesters for high school season. So
I was just laughing because the irony of the flip from player to coach.
Right,
oh man,
when you're a player, you're like,
we did none of those
just
things.
got it.
Coach,
I just got the paper.
Homework, coach.
Come on, bro.
No,
Coach,
that's where it's awesome because you know all the excuses.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I use that
I
one.
was
I know.
you.
I know you're not. I know you're lying to me because
You just told me yesterday I have to write a 10-page essay like tonight.
One of my girls players was like, Coach, I can't go to the tournament or like the second part of the tournament. I was like, why? He's like, I have a dentist appointment. It's like, the tournament is on a Sunday. I have never known a dentist to be open on a Sunday. And she's like, I'm like, go practice. Go.
To be fair, they're opening more on Sundays now, so.
Well, when Chick-fil-A opens on Sundays, then I'll be a little more lenient on the medical system.
It is crazy because I was thinking about that the other day, how like now Sundays are no longer like,
they're really no longer the holy day that they once were.
Yeah. So
not in any capacity.
There are businesses that do open now on Sundays.
Now it's the hangover recovery.
It is. I'm glad that you gave some of that insight into the communication aspects. I do think it's really important, especially from our end when we talk about those things. And this is kind of where it branches off into that other subject that I mentioned pre-pod, because my thing with the whole working during season was, and obviously we all got raised different. We all had different, people telling us whatever. At least from, my experience as a player. I was still a dual sport athlete, but I'm not going to say that I was rich by any means, by anything close to what that was. Like, my parents did enough to where we lived comfortably. We had food. I could do club stuff, like just very average run-of-the-mill financially. And so I know most of my kids are in that exact same situation. And therefore, like, at least with my program specifically, a lot of what I'm running into is just the parents pushing this agenda of, we need to make our kids independent. So F everything else that they're doing, we're going to make them work during their active seasons. And it's kind of where I'm breaching into that new conversation for this is, when as coaches do we break the one of the several cardinal rules that it's unspoken, but we all know some of the coaching handbook rules, right, that we get whenever we take on the role. And one of them is, you don't tell parents how to parent. However, I feel like this could be a good creative avenue, especially because when I look at it from an adult to an adult standpoint, what you're telling me by your kid working and missing practices and then expecting me to give them some kind of fair shake is that you don't respect my time for what I have to do, and your kid affects my ability to do my job and take care of my family. So from an adult to an adult standpoint, I'm not seeing how that's quite fair on us as coaches. So is this the one like asterisk in all the other things relating to parents as coaches that maybe as a community we do need to start kind of pushing back and establishing some, like, hey, your kid is not allowed to work during my season, like, period, unless there is a significant financial issue, like something like Keone had mentioned, where this is the only way your family is going to survive. Something like that. Nolan, I'll swing it back to you and let you get kind of started on that topic.
I just tell them straight up. It's like, doesn't matter who your father is. I'm your daddy. You listen to me.
Wow.
No, honestly,
Herman Boone.
I think it's difficult to say because, you don't want to step on a parent's toes, but we do live in a era where kids don't understand what being adult is until they are leaving college. And that's like a more average, like, you can start becoming an adult when you move on to college, do your own thing, get a job, help pay your own tuition, all that good stuff. But most people don't realize what being an adult is until they're like, I need to find something now that I'm done with school. Right. And I see the reason why parents would want to make it more of a thing now, because, like, hey, learn responsibility, learn time management, learn being on time to something, because if not, then it affects you in that that environment. But I would say, for the most part, I am in agreement with, during my season, I don't want you working during our time as a team or as a program. I wouldn't say necessarily I don't want you working at all. I would just say I don't want you working during our time that I have put together, scheduled for you. That's going to be constant. It's not going to change, barring any sort of, emergencies, gym closures, whatever it may be. You're not going to do that on my time. But at the same time, it is circumstantial. Parents are going to be parenting for whatever reasons they want. And if it is too much for them to handle, and they are obviously the keepers of their children, then you don't have to join my team. You can leave. I'm not gonna pull your leg. Right. I'm just giving my kind of 2 cents. If you do want to stay on the team, just understand your child is not going to get as much playing time and obviously not as much training as these other kids who are putting in the time and the effort. Same amount of money club-wise, same amount of money. High school is completely different. I could give 2 Fs if I put you on the court the whole season or not, because you're there to be on the team and get better. But it is pretty much just making sure that they understand what their actions are going to affect. And if you want to be on the team and you want to work, find a way to get some hours that are not on our time. All right, everything's kosher. You're going to work. It affects your time training with us. All right, you're not going to be on the court when it matters most during the tournaments. That's on you. If you don't want to be on the team at all because your parents are more important with you having a job, then so be it on that.
Right.
I'm here to coach. I understand where some players do have the talent to move on. Some players are doing it because they love the sport and they just have that energy when it comes to the sport that they love. Absolutely fine. But it depends on you, and I'm not going to push you any further than what you should understand as you join my team.
Yeah, sounds good. And the thing for me, at least piggybacking up of some of the things you mentioned, especially like even if they want to work around the time that we've set for practices, my concern with the kids is always that wear and tear and like just their concern for, you're an athlete. Like you need to sleep, you need to eat, you need time to get your studies done. Like you need time to be well in order for you to perform. So if you're adding a 20 to 30 hour work week, you already go to school for 40 hours, then we make you practice for 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 hours a week, give or take. You know what I mean? That's a lot.
Don't spread yourself too thin as a young guy, right?
Yeah, that too. Like that's kind of where, we're having some issues with kids, just like literally not being as attentive and not getting better because they physically can't at practice because they're working also. Now, like we haven't had that many issues as far as like missing practices, but you can also just tell on a kid the way their body language is. They're worn out, man. And we have a long season. We play 30 something games. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so to expect them to be ready to play these best of fives, especially in a regular season game plus work, it just doesn't make it just, it's concerning. That's all, because I wasn't allowed to do it. So I don't know. I wasn't allowed to until I graduated. That summer I was supposed to get a job, save money. And then that was my spending money for college because they weren't going to send a bunch of stuff over the, the wire to me. So Jared, your thoughts on like, is this a topic that coaches can kind of start breaching maybe as a community really of wherever you're at of like, hey, like here's where we're at as far as you making your kid work. Like, is this completely necessary for your your house, like to survive, like that kind of thing? Or is it just like, you just want them to work to learn stuff? Because I feel like we were also losing that notion of sports being that avenue of teaching time management, responsibility, work ethic, etc. And it's moved on to we're just making our kids work earlier.
It's hard for me to say, only in the sense of like, we always talk about like, oh, we don't tell parents how to parent, because we don't want them to have to tell us how to coach. Right? So I mean, in that regard, it's hard to say. But coming from like a outside perspective, not being a coach, not being a parent, in that regard, I think it's a good conversation to have. Just knowing, we try to do that in our parent meetings, especially for like high school. We have them like sign a thing that says, oh, do you accept the position? We have all these things that kind of list. Yeah. And one of the biggest things is playing time is earned, not promised. So if you accept it and people start complaining about playing time, pull up the email. Hey, remember you signed this. We ask the questions. Are you coming to practice? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And so I think, and it's sensitive, I think the kids and the parents, if I believe right, I'm not part of that email process, but I know that they all get that email. And so when parents come to us, we tell them that. And as an outside, like I said, looking at it from the outside in, I've had multiple conversations with parents about it, saying, hey, I'm not the coach right now, but I know like this is so-and-so's junior year. And she's working really hard. I know she wants to play in college. I know you want her to be responsible. But if she wants to play in college, I'm going to tell you right now, she needs to be at practices. Like I'm at that point too, where I told you guys that I got so frustrated with that team that I'm just going to treat them like boys. I'm going to treat them like a Division I, like a WUDS team, and just be hard on them. and teach them the ways of what goes on in the college world. Everything that we ran at Hope, watching Henry run his practices, to being a part of it, to whatever we ran when we were at Hope as well. I mean, like how things were tough for us when we had 10 o'clock practices or going into 1 a.m. in the mornings. Like I use all the stories that I've been a part of, and I tell the parents that. And if they feel like that's something that they want to instill, then great. But if not, I mean, I very much tell the parents in all my parents' meetings that I teach them more about life than I do volleyball. Yeah. I want to be a life lesson coach.
Absolutely.
Henry, I think, told me this one time. He was like, "Oh, I'm a life coach because like after I'm done coaching you, you can always message me, and if you have problems." And he has players that message him to this day. I have players who message me to this day asking about like, "Hey, this in college, I'm not doing this well. Hey, this is not working with the coach. Is there a way to approach them?" And I think parents, if you're open with parents about that part of your communication line and what you're trying to teach them, not just volleyball, I think they're more inclined to let them just, hey, we want you to be at practice. They see how you interact with their kids. I mean, it may be only at games, but I know a lot of my kids, especially on my JV team, tell me like, hey, they go home and the parents ask, "Oh, so what did you learn today? What did you guys do today? What did Coach Jared teach you today?" You know, it's like that, those kind of conversations. And I think when they get to hear all those great things or the things that you're teaching them other than volleyball, I think they're more inclined to let you like, hey, maybe he doesn't need a job yet because he's learning a lot of good things here about time management, responsibility, hard work, accountability, you know, like being present while you're there. And so for me, I think that's where I make sure, instead of having conversations and breaching the agreement, the coach's agreement, it's like I just have open conversations about, this is what I want your kid to do. I want them to be great athletes. I want them to learn this. I want them to learn that. I want them to take what they're learning here and apply it in the real world, and not just in volleyball. And I think a lot of parents are very, very open to that style of communication. Yeah. I wouldn't say coaching. It's more communication than anything else. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I've totally and that was my number one motto when I started coaching was like, I'm never going to lie to my kids. I'm never going to lie to my parents. And sometimes it's the best asset I have. And it's also the worst because I'm going to tell you the truth either way. And sometimes it's a truth that you don't want to hear, whether or not that is how you receive it and all that kind of good stuff. But I do think that honest communication, at least from where I've sat in my career, has yielded a lot of very positive results and interactions of kids being able to come and talk and strategize, and parents, if they have real issues, you know, we have the 24-hour rule. Once we have that break and we come back, because we're so open with everything, those conversations are a lot easier than if we didn't, you know, and we were some coaches that were kind of like some of the bad ones that we've all had, where they're like, well, maybe if you do this or maybe if you do that, never really gave us those like concrete, like, no, you're not playing because you're bad at passing and you don't play consistent, you know, front row block or whatever, like that kind of stuff. Like that's the stuff I tell my kids, like, you're not playing because XYZ. You want to get better? Show us you can do that. And then maybe we'll give you a look. And I don't even promise that they're going to get something if they improve. It's just like, this is where you want to be. This is where you're going. So Keone,
to be considered an outside, right? You want to pass it 2.0, right? It's like, hey, you're passing at 1.8, buddy. I just say like, you're not even hitting the guidelines. So how can I consider you to be there? Unless you want to be a right side, and awesome.
Yeah, there's a real conversation we had to have with our O2s right now. Like our O1 is pretty much slotted in and set for the season, and we're going to let that person kind of grow and all that because they've been away from volleyball for a little bit, but there's the freak athlete. So we know that if we let that guy just kind of keep learning, by the end of the year, he's going to be great, and he's already solid as it is. But our O2 spot is a huge hole, and we have 3 kids right now fighting it out for that O2 spot, and all 3 of them have very different avenues. We got one guy that's shorter, so he needs to figure out how to be effective front row and then keep passing. The other 2 guys are big freak athletes, but can't pass and make too many errors when they hit. So like that's their avenue. They have to improve a lot, you know, of other things. You know, having that real conversation and sit down is always good. So Keone, if you want to bring us home here on this last little topic about, you know, is this a, you know, conversation to where as coaches we can kind of break through to parents about like, hey, like, I think we need to change how we're thinking about, you know, installing those values on the kiddos, about working during your season, like that kind of stuff.
It's funny because kind of hearing what Jared was saying, I was thinking of how it is a lot different here in Hawaii of how coaching like this kind of goes, because for all intents and purposes, it's sort of like a Scared Straight approach. I don't know if you guys remember that show where they were like
love that
kids
show.
to the jail.
Show that to my kids all the time when I was working. It was great.
Yeah, it's very much that sort of reality check with coaching as far as the Hawaii culture is concerned. So you treat it where when we're here at practice, when when our team is formed, we immediately become a family. We immediately become this becomes a job for you. This becomes something that you must work very hard at, and you must actually, be a part of. It's not something that you can just kind of willy-nilly come in and come out of. So from where I was standing, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm very professionally blunt, I guess is like a very nicer way of saying it. So when it comes to that sort of your commitment to this, it's the same as you would be committed to everything else in your life. And I think if you go haphazardly into committing to this, you'll go haphazardly committing to whatever else you have going on in your life. So I say, especially for this conversation, I definitely think it's an interesting one to have. I am in the same boat as all three of you, I'm sure, as you guys have already kind of mentioned, where you don't like to have the parents kind of having a say in what you do because you wouldn't want to have a say in what they're doing. Mm-hmm. But in the same professional courtesy that you would have like with coworkers or whatever, I think it's that same relationship we should have with them, where we can have an open line of communication, basically laying out the foundation. And me personally, when I start, I like to say like these are the rules. Parents, if you can't follow it, I'm perfectly okay with you taking your child out if you feel like that's necessary for them. But I will say, this is how it's going to be post high school, post club, post whatever. Like when they get to the next level or when they get up into the real world, really, like this is the kind of foundation you're laying for them. Like if they're not willing to commit 2 hours out of their day to a high school volleyball team, what's to say they're going to feel that way when it comes to going to their job or doing something else after that? So for me, it's very much in that mindset where it's, one day you're going to be an adult. You're going to learn all these lessons the hard way probably, but I'm trying to tell you right now, I've gone through the hard way. There's an easier way. We just need to keep an open line. So that's where I'm at as far as
I think a lot of it is instant gratification for these young kids. They want to do the job, because they think it's going to make them better for life, but because they want the money and they want to be able to, you're going to miss your friend's birthday hangout because you have to go to a tournament. That's the instant gratification, being able to be with their friends, celebrate, have a good time. It's commitment. You're going to make these life choices as you get older where you have to choose something that's more responsible for you than it is for your own kind of health meter, I guess.
Barring like a horrible, financial situation at home, be a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Enjoy it.
You're only going to be there for so long. The high school times, like for all of us, I'm sure we all have high school friends who we still, consider really great friends. It just, enjoy that experience. Don't take too much time away from it because it will be over a lot quicker than you think it will. So
there will always be another time.
And that's the line that I usually have had when, these issues have come up for me is like, jobs aren't going anywhere. We are in a post-COVID world. You know what I mean? For for like what teenagers are doing, like, fast food, busting tables, like all those, the starter jobs that we've all done before, right?
The fun stuff.
Like, right. Those jobs aren't going anywhere in the next 10 years. Okay. We are in a post-COVID era. So you're concerned about your kid not being able to understand how to get in the workforce and all this stuff. I don't see it being viable minus a desperate situation at the household. And I've had those kids. Like one of my first, like my second year, I think it was at MOBAP, when my JV kids was missing practice a bunch, but he, as a more dealing with older adults, right? Or older versions of my kids, he was like 20, but it's a hard conversation to kind of admit and have and be like, hey coach, like straight up, like my parents don't support me being here. Like, and I'm basically working 40 hours of once we broke that wall, it was easier for me to understand like where he was at all the time. And like, then we had great communication and opened that line of like understanding where a kid's at versus, you know, these upper middle class kids that don't need all of that going on and can literally just be fine with mom and dad pitching in here and there, and just that being the value of, well, we want our kids to work, so they're going to work, and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely a fine line, right? Like it's hard to kind of,
something parents need to understand. This is work. You know what I'm saying? I think, you're learning the same things, just the money doesn't necessarily.
Just different.
But I think that's what's been lost, I think, in recent generations of parents, is that sports are no longer this avenue of teaching kids that lesson of hard work, commitment, work ethic, all those things like time management. And it's morphed out of that, and they want to kind of almost dismiss the sports aspect of like, this is not something that we really have to be committed to, like, especially
they're
at the
just
public
playing
high
a
school
game.
level.
Like,
it's just a game, and nobody, you know, does any of that kind of stuff. But again, you know, for maybe a parent listening to this as from 3 or 4, like 4 coaches, like your values affect how we make a living. You know what I mean? And it's a weird relationship when you think about it, because we need their kid to be here so we can teach them how to improve, therefore affecting our results as coaches and as our teams that we run, right? So it's a weird kind of synergistic relationship that we have.
Yeah.
But
We're not guilt tripping.
It's real.
But we're just saying.
Well, I think it's, I'm fine guilt tripping parents, because there are some that just don't understand what we do. You know, there are some out there that absolutely do not prioritize making their kid commit to what they signed up for. I see it more on the girls' side, obviously, than the boys. The boys I really don't have an issue with, but the girls' side, especially with the club stuff, as a public high school coach, we get dumped on so much, because they will miss for any given thing when it comes to club, because that's what they paid for, which is fine. But the club side of the world in girls volleyball has also taken advantage of that, making it to where they're going to schedule all their stuff the same time that we have tryouts. So it's really hard to get these public programs somewhat competitive when half your kids are never there, or they just miss because, well, we got club practice, or like, well, we got a club thing, and we have a trivia night for all that. And I'm like, we're in season here. Like, if you didn't want to do this, why did you try it? You know, that kind of stuff. But yeah, boys, I think we brought it home. I think this was another banger episode. We really brought in some good stuff, and hopefully we'll have Mr. Henry on very, very soon, and we'll get some good one-on-one interview stuff, learn about the high school level, learn about the college level, and kind of everything in between with Mr. Henry. So, yeah, yeah, good stuff, guys. Nolan, people are on the internet, and they want to maybe catch up with you on this thing, or ask coaching questions. You know, where can they find you?
Just don't.
Okay, that's good stuff.
You guys can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at Nolan KYT, NOLAN KYT.
Beautiful. Jared?
I am on Instagram and Twitch at JShirai, JSHIRAI, and on Twitter at JShirai808.
And Keone McKeague.
You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at Keone. That's KAYOHKNEE.
Beautiful. You can find me on Twitter at Jalen Holston, Instagram at ArtByJalen, and Twitch at MochaThanos_LGG. Well, it's been real, it's been fun, but it ain't been real fun. You know what I mean? Good vibes and love, everybody.
Good vibes and love,
Catch
guys.
you next week.
Bang, bang.
Shoots, boys.